Hi guys, welcome back to X-Plane 10. If you watched my video on the AutoGate plugin, you will know that we are currently sitting at Gatwick, gate 51. I'm just adjusting the autopilot's vertical speed there back to 0 so that I can set that in a minute for you. So we're at gate 51, we're cold and dark, so the first thing I'm going to do is get some power into the aircraft, and then we are going to fly Gatwick to Manchester, just a short flight to demonstrate X-Plane a bit. So let's start the APU up. There we go, that started. Turn our avionics and lights on. Taxi and landing, there we go. We'll set our autopilot source to GPS and the flight director switch to on. Okay, we need to set our comm frequency for Gatwick. So, didn't mean to do that, I wanted local map. So, we're at Gatwick, so I'm going to zoom in a bit and click on the blue writing there. So, delivery, who will clear our flight plan, are 121.95 and ground is 121.8. Ground will give us the frequency for tower anyway, so we need to remember those two. So, I will set initially 121.95. Okay, that's fine. So I'm now going to program our FMS, flight management system, with our route. We don't need to put in where we are because the GPS obviously knows that. So we'll initialize, and the first point is going to be a VOR, which is LAM, so that's the Lambourne VOR. And then we'll go to the fix at Heidi, then the fix at Welling, then the fix at Timpo. This is all from a flight plan I downloaded. And finally the VOR at TNT, the Trent VOR, and then the last one is our airport where we're going, EGCC, Manchester International. That's fine. Yep, all looks good. So that's our route planned into there. I'll turn on our transponder. I'll turn the engines to run but won't actually start them yet. So I'm now going to set our speed, which I'll put initially to 300. That's for when we get off the ground and we can enable the auto throttle. I'm going to set the initial heading to 080, which will be the runway heading, I would imagine. I'm going to set our altitude to 15,000 feet, a bit low for a 777, but on a short flight like this you probably wouldn't reach, say, 35,000 before you've got to descend anyway. So let's go up to 15,000, that will do us. Shouldn't be too long getting there. As you hold down the left mouse button it speeds up. You can see it's pretty flying up now. So 8, 9, there we go, 15,000, and we'll climb initially at 1,000 feet a minute. So that's our vertical speed. So that's all set. So I now need to contact ATC, use the enter button on the keyboard, and we're going to file our flight plan. Now our flight plan is going to be EGKK, which is Gatwick, at 15,000 to Echo Golf Charlie Charlie, Manchester, and our route is Lamb, Heidi, Welling, Timpo and TNT. So that's our route, so we'll file that. If you've got any of these typed wrong it will tell you. In fact I've put LSM there, so let's just see what happens. There you go, unknown navaid LSM. So I need to go in there and change that. I hit the wrong key, but now that I've got that correct, there you go, our flight plan is filed. So the next thing to do is contact them again, and you'll see a new options appeared, request clearance.
Victor, India, India, Tango. Cleared IFR to Echo, Golf, Charlie, Charlie, as filed. Maintain 15,000, squawk 4700.
Okay, so we cleared instrument flight rules to Manchester, that's fine. So we'll read that back.
Cleared IFR to Echo, Golf, Charlie, Charlie, as filed. Maintain 15,000, squawk 4700. Victor, India, India, Tango.
Okay, so the squawk is 4700, which is what it's already set on, so that's fine. So in preparation for taxiing, I'm going to set the frequency to 121.8. If I go the right way, there we go, make that active, so that will be ready for us to contact ground controller to get taxi instructions in a few minutes. But the first thing I'm going to do is get us pushed back off the stand. So let's just go to ground services and request pushback. 25 metres should be far enough. We want the nose to go left, because if we look at our view outside, if I just spin round from here, the runway is in fact off to the left down there under that bridge, so that's fine. So we'll go back into there and we'll request that pushback. And again, if we look outside, spin round to the back of the plane, and we should see that a pushback truck has turned up. And there it is, just moving on to the front wheel of the plane.
VIIT pushback ready. Please release park brakes.
Okay, they want to release the brakes, and he'll push us back. It's supposed to rotate 90 degrees, but for some reason they don't always do that. We'll see if he does. Tail should come round towards us, but I don't think he's actually turning us. I'm not sure why it doesn't do that. But what I'll do is just hit cancel.
VIIT pushback advo route.
So it should say aborted, but the person who wrote this plugin, I think, is Dutch, so you aborted. Anyway, we'll close that now. So we'll go back inside. And now that we have pushed back off the stand, I'm going to start our engines. So click and hold the left mouse button. And we should see the green bar coming up, which indicates our engine has started. Now the other one. There we go, both engines started, so that's fine. So I'm going to just give it a little bit of throttle. And now we will see one of the big problems with X-Plane. I am going to contact ATC and request taxi instructions.
Victor, India, India, Tango. Hold short of runway 8 right.
Hold short of 8 right. Victor, India, India, Tango.
Okay, so they want us to go to runway 8 right. Now you can see a yellow line has appeared in front of us going off to the left, which is actually the taxi route, and this is where the problem comes in, so we'll follow that. Let's give it a little bit more thrust, that's very slow. I think it's about 25 speed limit, something like that, maybe 30. We'll see, going past catering trucks and the such like. So you can see where this yellow line goes. Basically we would be bumping into those other aircraft if we followed that. But it gets worse in a second. As we go down here, so if we stick almost exactly on this yellow line, just use the brakes to moderate the speed. And I'm going to brake and come to a stop here. Just around there. Now you can see that line in front of us go straight through those vehicles and also straight through the building. Now apparently the taxiways were laid down before everything else, so they mapped the taxiways and then they put all the buildings on top of them, which is not great, I think you'd agree. So I'll show you how to get around that in a second. So we're going to go straight through here. This will shake the passengers up a bit. Okay, that's fine. And we're going to head across this way, straight through gates and all sorts, and out here. So I'm going to stop again there. I'm just going to check. I haven't told the passengers to put their seatbelts on yet, so I'll do that. No smoking's a given anyway. Okay, so now we're going to not follow the yellow line, and we're going to head down this way, which is where you really should taxi anyway. And you should see that they will tell us again to hold short of 8 right. They tell you again because you're not following the yellow line. Hopefully he'll tell us again in a minute.
Victor, India, Tango. Hold short of runway 8 right.
So acknowledge that again.
Hold short of 8 right. Victor, India, Tango.
Okay, so we're now actually onto a proper taxiway. Will be in a second. There we go. So you could actually just taxi out here and then request the taxi instructions. If you fly on something like VATSIM, they will tell you proper taxiways to go down, and you don't get this problem of going straight through buildings and the such like. But I just wanted to show you that that is an issue with X-Plane. Now to our left you can see a runway. That is not the runway that we're heading for. That in fact would be runway 08 left from this end that we're heading for, but they don't use that runway as a runway at Gatwick in normal circumstances. Only in exceptional circumstances would they use that. The next runway across is where we're heading. That runway 08 left, to our left at the moment, is actually used as a taxiway. So Gatwick actually operates as a single runway airport. Everything taking off and landing does so on the other runway. And you'll see when we get to the end here, we'll go straight past the first one and on to the second one. So we're heading down here. Might see a bit of traffic on the roads in front of us. I think I can see a car down there or two. So you do generally, I've got the settings such that you get traffic on the roads, and you get trains on railway trains, tracks and all that sort of thing. There are other graphic options you can set that I don't bother with because it starts to get very heavy on your CPU and graphics processor, and that can cause crashes, cause the program to crash completely. So to avoid that, I keep the graphics settings on a fairly moderate setting, to be honest. With regard to the graphics settings, the only way to find out what's best for your machine is to try different things out and see which work and which don't. But I would suggest, unless you've got an extremely good PC, I mean, mine's got 16 gigabytes and an NVIDIA GeForce GTX 770 video card, and it still has problems if I turn up the graphics settings too high. I'm also using Windows 10, but that's not an issue because it does the same thing it did it in Windows 7 and Windows 8. I've had machines with both of those, and the same problems existed, so it's not down to Windows 10, it's simply down to the graphic power. X-Plane draws a lot of graphics all the time as you fly along, and it does take up a lot of processor resources and also graphics processing unit resources. So unless you've got a really good system with a lot of graphics memory.
Victor, India, Tango. Contact tower on 124.22.
Okay, so they've now told us to contact tower on 124.22, so we'll read that back.
Contact tower on 124.22. Victor, India, Tango.
Okay, so what I'm going to do is put that in here. I'm deliberately leaving the other frequency on 135.95, and you'll see why shortly. Okay, so I'm now going to contact ATC again and check in the tower.
Tower, Victor, India, Tango.
Victor, India, Tango. Runway 8 right. Cleared for takeoff.
Okay, so I'll read that back.
Runway 8 right. Cleared for takeoff. Victor, India, Tango.
Okay, I have got other aircraft turned off. If you have them turned on, you might queue to get onto the runway with aircraft in front of you taking off, you might have to wait while one lands and all that sort of thing. On a single runway airport like this, that's always a possibility. But I've got it turned off at the moment just for the purposes of this video. So I'm going to line up on the centre line. As good as, that will do. Okay, so I'm going to set the auto brakes for when we get to the other end to help slow us down, although it's a fairly long runway at Manchester International. So I think everything is set. So we'll put our throttles up to maximum. There we go. And then we'll take the brakes off. And with a bit of luck, should comfortably reach rotate speed. Here it comes. You can see an orange bar on the speed display indicating where rotate speed is. And we're near enough there now. So up we go. Rotate. Yep, that's fine. And I'll set the autopilot to auto. And I'll hit the localizer button, which will make the autopilot
Victor, India, India, Tango. Contact center on 135.905.
Contact center on 135.905. Victor, India, India, Tango.
Okay, so the centre frequency is the one I'd already set. That's why I left that on 135.95. So we'll switch that across and check in the centre.
Center, Victor, India, India, Tango.
Put the undercarriage up.
Victor, India, India, Tango, Echo, Golf, Kilo, Romeo. Altimeter 2992.
Okay, read that back.
Echo, Golf, Kilo, Romeo. Altimeter 2992. Victor, India, India, Tango.
Because I'm not using real weather, it's already set at 2992 anyway. If it wasn't, we'd adjust it with this switch down here. We don't need to do that, so I'll take the taxi and landing lights off now. And you can see we're climbing. So I'm going to set auto throttle at this point, which will hopefully slow the rate of climb. We were getting close to the operating speed limit of the plane, so we did need to get that sorted a bit. And now we should be able to climb a little bit faster. So you can see the throttles are moving automatically now. That's because auto throttle is engaged. And we're no longer flying to the heading 080, even though that's what it says, because we've hit the localizer button. We will follow the red line on the map, which is our flight plan. So we're currently heading towards the Lambourne Vaux, which is 22 miles away. So it shouldn't take us too long at 300 miles an hour. So we'll just have a look outside. You can see the undercarriage is now up. The undercarriage does work in X-plane, so it will fold up into the belly of the aircraft and obviously fold down again when we need it for landing. So that's the circle view where you can go all the way round. Another view I do like in X-plane is the still spot view. So that's us. And also linear spot is the same, except that it will stay like that the whole time, so the airplane doesn't whiz by, you actually travel along with it. You've got other views like chase, for example, and so on. We'll go back inside. So once we reach 15,000, I'll take the seatbelt sign off and let the passengers have a stroll around. But everything else should be fine from what I can see at the moment. Everything's absolutely fine. Don't think there's anything we need to be changing. So we can happily continue like this. Climbing now to 8,500 and we're 13 miles from the Lambourne Vaux. So hopefully should be there fairly soon, where we'll then make a left turn to follow the red line on the map, which will take us out towards the fix at Heidi. As I say, I haven't got real weather turned on for this flight, but if you do enable real weather, X-Plane will download real weather conditions from the internet every few minutes, and you might then at various times have to change that altimeter reading from 2992. If you say fly UK to Europe and it's tipping it down in the UK but dry in Europe, and the air pressure is completely different weather systems and so on, then you'll be changing that, because that's all to do with air pressure, that altimeter reading. If you don't set the altimeter correctly, then your altitude doesn't read correctly. So we're through 10,000 now, about 7.5 miles from Lambourne. I'm going to set the vertical speed up to 2,000, which will just get us to 15,000 a little bit quicker. And as we get close to 15,000, you should see the vertical speed light will go out and the altitude light will change from orange to yellow, which means that it's now locked at that altitude. Now 5 miles from Lambourne, so we're going to be making that turn fairly soon. So I'm not touching anything when this turn happens. It will be the autopilot making the turn for me. Here we go. So that's the autopilot now turning our plane onto a heading to head straight towards Heidi. And we're coming through 12,000 now, so we're climbing quite nicely towards our cruising altitude of 15,000. Perhaps increase the speed a bit to 325. You can hear the engines revving higher as they accelerate up to that speed. Now through 13,000. I've set the weather conditions to clear so that we can get a view of the scenery as we go, but obviously if you set real weather you could by now be above clouds when you can't see very much at all. For the purposes of this video I thought I'd keep it nice and clear so we can see what's below us a little bit. You can see quite a lot of grasslands, there's quite a lot of fields and so on in this area, a couple of villages and maybe a small town there just to our left. We're now at 14,500, so we're very close to 15, so I'd expect that vertical speed light to go out in a second. There it goes, and there's the altitude gone to yellow, so that means that it should level off at 15,000 for us. $14,980, that's close enough for me. So that should level itself out now, so we can let the passengers have a bit of a stroll around.
The captain has turned on the seatbelt sign. You may now take off your seatbelt.
There you go, the cabin crew just announced that we've turned the seatbelt sign off and that passengers can now take off their seatbelt if they wish. So in future videos we will look at other plugins like X-Passenger and so on. For the purposes of this flight, obviously last time in the video we looked at AutoGate and this time we used ground services for the pushback, but there are other plugins that I've got enabled which we can see in future videos. This plane is free in X-Plane, however it's not exactly where you might think it would be. When you go to the open aircraft menu, to get to the 777 you actually need to go down to where it says extra aircraft and then aircraft from previous versions, and in that area, if you go into the heavy metal section, you will find this plane listed in there. So I think this was an X-Plane 9 plane originally, it's one they brought through into X-Plane 10. There are plenty of free aircraft you can download from the internet for X-Plane, and also a number of very good payware aircraft. I think this is a nice plane. I do like the 787 as well. The 787 is a beautiful aeroplane. So you do have a heads-up display as well, which I generally don't use, but I'll switch it on. Shows you your altitude and speed and so on. Generally I fly with that off. I don't particularly like that, so I'll turn that off because I can see the speed and altitude anyway. On the subject of speed, I think we can probably go up to 350 now. You normally wouldn't be allowed to go up to a speed like 350 too quickly coming out of Gatwick because of noise abatement regulations and such like. Now we're up at 15,000. I don't think that's going to cause any problems. So flying on VATSIM, that adds a great deal of realism to it. However, you will tend to find that a lot of the time there are no controllers online. I think they need more people to train as controllers. These guys give up their time basically free. They don't get paid for it, just so that we can fly, which is pretty cool. But you do then get proper taxi instructions, you know, from your departure airport like Gatwick, Heathrow, wherever. And you also usually get handed off to another controller if there's a centre controller
Victor,
online.
India, Tango, Echo, Golf, Tango, Charlie, altimeter 2992.
Echo, Golf, Tango, Charlie, altimeter 2992. Victor, India, Tango.
Okay, so at the moment we're flying towards Heidi. We are about 5.5 miles from Heidi. Should be there in less than a minute. We will then make a slight right turn, which will take us towards the fix at Welling. And then that's Wellingborough, near Northampton. And then we're well on our way towards Manchester. So all being flown on autopilot at the moment. Not a lot we have to do, but that's pretty much how aeroplanes are flown. With the wonders of GPS, you can just program your flight management system, which we did with the route, and let the autopilot follow that route for you. Unless, of course, air traffic control tell you to do something different and deviate from the flight plan that you filed. Which I think they will do probably with altitude fairly soon. I think you'll get told to descend a fair bit and then climb back to 15,000 again. That's what they seem to do on this particular route. And then as we get nearer to Manchester, we'll be told to turn to a different heading and so on to get us lined up for the runway. Once they do start telling us to do you know, change heading as we get closer to Manchester, then I will start to reduce the speed. I do know that the ILS frequency for Manchester is 109.5, and if we just look at the nav1, I've already got that set in there, 109.5. So that will be ready for us when we approach Manchester, assuming we're using runway 5 left, which I imagine we will be. So we now just reached Welling and we're now turning, heading for Timpo, which is 20 miles away. Once we reach Timpo, it'll be from there to TNT, Bor in the next
Victor, India, Tango, descend and maintain 11,000.
Okay, I'm not surprised by that.
Down to 11,000. Victor, India, Tango.
So what I'm going to do is start reducing the altitude and then enable the vertical speed so that we start descending, and then we shouldn't get constantly reminded by air traffic
Victor,
control.
India,
Do
India,
anyway.
Tango. Descend and maintain 1,000.
Down to 1,000. Victor, India, India, Tango.
You do sometimes get a number of reminders which can be quite annoying, but it does take time to dial these things in and get yourself to exactly the altitude they want you at, but there you go. So I'm not surprised that we're descending. We always seem to do that on this route. Look at the nav charts, you'll find that that's a requirement when flying over this particular area, and I think in fact we'll go down to 7,000 fairly soon. If memory serves, I think we have to go down as far as 7,000 on this route, and then very soon after get told to climb back to 15,000 again, which I don't think we ever managed to do before we're descending ready for landing anyway. But we'll see. We're coming down to 13,000 now, so we're descending through 13,000, heading for 11,000. We're descending at 2,000 feet a minute. So we're coming down towards 12,000, and that last 1,000 feet, 2,000 feet a minute, would take about 30 seconds. So we're about 30 seconds or so from reaching 11,000.
Victor, India, India, Tango. Descend and maintain 7,000.
So down to 7,000
Down
now.
to 7,000. Victor, India, India, Tango.
So the vertical speed's already on descend at 2,000, so I can just dial the heading down to 7,000, that'll be fine. And we are 5 miles now from Timpo. So once we reach Timpo, we'll then be heading straight towards the Trent VOR, TNT. VOR stands for Very High Frequency Omnidirectional Radar. So basically it's a radar station that are used for navigation for aeroplanes. Just a word about ILS. When we get closer to the runway, we will enable nav1 as the source so that the plane picks up the ILS. I've dialed in the frequency already, as I said, 109.5. So once we get there, the aeroplane will receive 2 tones from the ILS system, one saying left hand side the runway, the other one saying right hand side the runway, and then of course it knows where the centre line of the runway is and will take us down to that, and hopefully glide slope will engage and we will fly straight down to the runway at Manchester. So all that should be automated for us thanks to the instrument landing system. So we're getting close to 7,000 now. We're down at 8.5, so we're going to be down to 7,000 fairly soon. Although I suspect they will be telling us to climb back up to 15,000 before too long, if I remember correctly. We'll see. So we're coming down to 8,000, going through 8,000 now. And we're now 29 miles, near enough, from the TNT VOR. We've gone past the Timpo fix. And we're now heading to TNT, Trent VOR, and we're almost down to 7,000.
Victor, India, India, Tango. Descend and maintain 3,000.
Okay, down to 3,000, okay.
Down to 3,000. Victor, India, India, Tango.
So what I'm going to do is get it descending again, hopefully avoid these
Victor, India, India, Tango, Echo, Golf, November, X-ray. Altimeter 2992.
Echo, Golf, November, X-ray. Altimeter 2992. Victor, India, India, Tango.
Okay, so I'm now going down to 3,000. We just got the weather 2992 for the altimeter from Echo Golf November X-ray, which is actually East Midlands Airport. So around about Donington, I think it's Leicestershire. Not sure. Could be Nottinghamshire. Anyway, it's around there. That'll be East Midlands Airport that is saying again because I've got wheel weather turned off, that altimeter reading is going to stay at 2992 all the way. Coming over a fairly large city now, I think you can see. Could be Nottingham. I think we're in that sort of area. I do have on a tablet an Android app called Moving Map. I just searched the App Store for X-Plane and Moving Map came up as one of the options, completely free. And that actually gives you your aeroplane moving across Google Maps, so you can see which cities you're going over and so on. So I'm not using that at the moment, but that is a really handy app if you've got like me, an Android tablet, that you can just put that on and have that next to your desk and you can take a glance at that and see exactly where you are. You can see we're flying over a fairly heavily populated area. If we were low enough we'd see the roads, well I can see the roads, but we'd also see vehicles on those roads, possibly trains, all that sort of thing. But we're not actually really low enough to get a clear view of anything like that. So it'd be useful, guys, if you could comment in the videos and let me know.
Victor, India, Tango. Climb and maintain 15,000.
Up to 15,000. Victor, India, Tango.
Sorry, I was saying comment to let me know what you'd like
Victor,
to see.
India, Tango. Climb and maintain 15,000.
Up to 15,000. Victor, India, Tango.
Okay, so yeah, if you could comment as to what sort of things you'd like to see, maybe, I don't know, Gatwick to Paris, Heathrow to Madrid, whatever. I was also thinking of doing in a light aircraft a tour around the UK coastline. Nice for those of us who live in the UK, might know some of the areas, but equally if you don't live in the UK, it would give you a good idea where things are, so we can do that as well. I mean, I'm up for most things, to be honest. So if you'd like to comment and suggest anything you'd like to see, more than happy to
Victor,
look at that.
India, Tango. Fly heading 310. Vectors for the visual. Runway 5 left. Climb and maintain 5,000.
Heading 310. Vectors for the visual. Runway 5 left. Up to 5,000. Victor, India, Tango.
Okay, so we've come off the autopilot settings now, and they're telling us to go to 5,000, which it's almost at, so we'll probably go a little bit over that and then have to descend a touch to get to 5,000. So I'm just going down on the altitude. 52, 5150, there we go, that's 5,000. And we're a bit above that.
Victor, India, Tango. Descend and maintain 5,000.
Yes, we know, we're doing that, thank you.
Down to 5,000. Victor, India, Tango.
Okay, I'm also going to take the speed down to about 300 and put our undercarriage down. If we have a look outside, you should be able to see the wheels coming down. So that looks fine. We'll also tell the passengers to get their seatbelts on now, as we're soon going to be preparing for landing.
Seatbelt sign. Please return to your seat and fasten your seatbelt.
There's cabin crew telling the passengers to get in their seats and fasten their seatbelts. And take the speed down further, down to about 250. And then I'll add a bit of flaps. The landing speed, I believe, is about 160 or 777, something like that. So as we make further turns as instructed by air traffic control, I will start to reduce the speed further to get us down to a reasonable speed. The flaps graphic has now come up below the altitude reading and just below the altimeter 2992 inches. You can see a flaps graphic has come up there. So that's showing that our flaps are indeed down a little bit, and they will be fully down by the time we get to landing. As I say, landing speed I think is about 160, somewhere around that anyway. That's what we're aiming for. So they did say we're going to be landing at runway 5 left at Manchester. So what we'll do is switch our source over to Nav1, which, as I say, is set on the ILS frequency of 109.5. There we go, so that's the ILS frequency for Manchester. So we'll be flying and landing indeed at Manchester runway 5 left, which is what I expected, to be honest. So we're now at around about 5,000 feet and we are 14 miles from Manchester Airport. Now if we just take a quick look at the local map and centre on aircraft, you can see that's where we are, and we're headed for Manchester, which is sort of straight in front of us. So we're going to turn left, I would imagine, head west and then turn to the right to come in towards the runway. So that looks like what air traffic control will have us doing. We're coming over another fairly large town by the look of it. I don't know Lancashire that well, but there's a lot of towns and that around Manchester. I'd imagine it's a very large area in front of us.
Victor, India, India, Tango. Fly heading 230. Descend and maintain 2,000.
Heading 230. Down to 2,000. Victor, India, India, Tango.
Victor, India, India, Tango. Descend and maintain 2,000.
Down to 2,000. Victor, India, India, Tango.
And it was fly heading 230, so I'm going to get our altitude down to 2,000 hopefully. And we're going to turn to heading 230. So this should be taking us southwest, and then we'll be making a few right turns to line up with the runway. As we're doing this, I'm going to start reducing the speed a bit further. Increase the flaps a little. Let's take a look outside again. See how we're doing. Yep, everything looks fine.
Victor, India, India, Tango. Fly heading 230. Vectors for the visual. Runway 5 left. Descend and maintain 2,000.
Okay, I think we know all that.
Heading 230. Vectors for the visual. Runway 5 left. Down to 2,000. Victor, India, India, Tango.
Maybe they want us to descend a little bit faster. We are flying heading 230. They're saying we should be able to see the runway when we get there. They're saying it's visual, which would make sense because I did set it on a clear day so that you guys could see the scenery and so on. So we should get a view of the runway from a fair way out. We're currently 7 miles from Manchester, and that distance is increasing as we're flying slightly away from the airfield, ready to make the turns to take us in. So what I'm going to do now is take our speed down to 200 and put the flaps to full. Okay, altitude is dropping. We're at 2.3. Vertical speed has gone off. Altitude has gone to the hold, gone yellow, so that means that we're holding our altitude, which is settling now at around about 2,000. See, the nose is coming up a little bit as we stop descending now. So our speed's at around about 200. check local map again. Central on aircraft, you can see that we are in fact, we're going to be turning west and then north and round towards 050, which is the heading for the runway. So we should be making a couple of right turns fairly soon. Coming over another town below us, as you can see. There's a sparkling going on as lights are coming on. A bit later in the day it's starting to get a bit dusky, so there's a lot of lights on below us now. I didn't set the time to mirror real time or anything like that, so this is the time that X-Plane has decided to set for this journey, which is fine, it's not a problem.
Victor, India, India, Tango. Fly heading 320.
Okay, 320
Heading
now.
320. Victor, India, India, Tango.
Okay, down to 180 with the speed now. Not going too fast means you can make these turns and get yourself lined up nicely with the runway. I have got equipment failures turned off as well. You can allow random equipment failures, which can make the flights interesting to say the least. See, there's a number of towns. We're just about to fly over another one. So round about Manchester, I suppose you've got places like Bolton, Accrington. I don't know, it wouldn't be Blackpool, that's on the coast, that would be beyond the other side of Manchester. As I say, I don't know Lancashire area terribly well, so I couldn't put my hand on my heart and tell you exactly what these towns are as we're going across them. We're at 2000 now, you might get a glimpse of some traffic on the roads. Still a bit difficult to see from this height really. As we get lower you will see traffic on the road as we approach Manchester, I think. Zoom in a bit. It's still pretty difficult to actually see much down there, I've got to say. Most important thing is we're getting closer to the airport
Victor,
now.
India, India, Tango, Echo, Golf, Charlie, Charlie. Altimeter 2992.
Echo, Golf, Charlie, Charlie. Altimeter 2992. Victor, India, India, Tango.
So confirmation, the altimeter reading at Manchester.
Victor, India, India, Tango. Fly heading 020.
Okay.
Heading 020. Victor, India, India, Tango.
So I'm taking our speed down to 170. We're 10 miles from Manchester and we should be almost lined up with the runway. 020, the next turn will take us to 050 and then we should be able to see the runway in front of us hopefully. So it's going to be a bit to our right. In fact, I can see it now, just off to the right there. I can see the airport. So we'll be making that turn shortly.
Victor, India, India, Tango. Fly heading 050. Report the field in sight.
Heading 050. We'll call the field. Victor, India, India, Tango.
I have actually already seen the field anyway, so I'm going to say I can see it, but you should see it
Center,
yourself in a
Victor,
moment.
India,
There it is.
India, Tango.
Victor, India, India, Tango. Contact tower on 118.62.
Contact tower on 118.62. Victor, India, India, Tango.
Okay, so I'm just going to set that 118.62 in our COM1 frequency. And then check in with tower.
Tower, Victor, India,
And the
India,
hit
Tango.
localizer and glide slope. So you can see the plane, now that I've clicked localizer, is turning across to line up with the runway. So So I'll reduce our speed to 165. So I think it should be okay. See how we look? Yeah, we look pretty good. Don't think there's a problem there. Let's see how we do. So we've now hit the glide slope and you can see the plane is descending. So we're going down through 1900 and that should take us now straight down to the runway. You should be able to see the Varsi lights on the runway should be 2 white and 2 red. If they're all white, you're too high, it means you're above the glide slope. If they're all red, you're below the glide slope. What we really want is 2 whites, 2 reds, which means we're bang on the glide slope. So on my yoke I have got a button set for reversing the engines, which I will probably do just as we touch down. Make sure that we stop before the end of the runway.
Victor, India, Tango, runway 5 left, clear to land.
Okay, we've got landing
Runway
birds.
5 left, cleared to land. Victor, India, Tango.
And what I'm going to do is look to the outside view. There's the runway in front of us. So if we go to about there, just take the speed down a bit further.
500.
So we should be landing very shortly now. So there's the outskirts of the airport, and here's the runway, and we're down. Not the greatest landing in the world, but so you can see we're slowing down quite considerably. Coming to the end of the runway. So I'm going to turn off to the left here.
Victor, India, Tango.
Okay, now that's our directions to the gate.
Victor, India, Tango. Contact ground on 121.7.
Contact ground on 121.7. Victor, India, Tango.
Okay, so I'm just going to do that, 121.7. I'm now going to move the throttles back to take us forward a little bit. Checking the ground.
Ground, Victor, India, Tango.
Take the brakes off and you can see the yellow line has appeared for us to follow to get to the gate. Now again, we might end up going through buildings and such like. That also happens when you land sometimes. I forgot to put the taxi landing lights back on. I'll do it now, but I should have done that. So apologies for that. Landing lights should have been on, not necessarily taxi, but not to worry, we're down, that's what counts at the end of the day. So we're now going to follow the taxiway to whichever gate they're sending us to. Hopefully they're sending us to an actual gate rather than just a parking area, which it does sometimes. With a bit of luck we'll have an actual gate, because I believe the auto gate plug-in should work here. Memory serves. Hope so, that would be nice. If you didn't see my previous video on the auto gate plug-in, this will help explain what it's all about. But if they send us off to just a parking area somewhere, then unfortunately we won't get that, and then it would be a case of passengers would get off onto buses. Well, I'm going to go round the end of this building. The yellow line actually seems to go through the end of the building, but I'm just going to go round. So I'm just going to come around here and see if I can find the yellow line again. Should be around here somewhere. There it is. And now you can see I think it is going to go straight through the building, very possibly. But we'll follow it. You can see, in fact, the line is going to go straight through this building. As I say, I think it's because the taxiways were laid down before all the buildings. So we're going to be going over here. Looks like we're going through again. This is a bit of a strange one, this, but there you go. Nothing much we can do about it. Again, on VATSIM you would be given correct taxiways to taxi down, all that sort of thing. Okay, so I just caught a glimpse of the yellow line then. Not entirely sure where it wants us to go, to be honest. Just turn and have a look. It may be it's decided to put us at a gate immediately after we came straight through the building, which makes it impossible for us to see where. Let's just have a look outside. Okay, I think they want us at the gate behind us, but we'll taxi across here to the nearest gate, that will do. So we'll come across here, and I'm going to go into that gate over there. It may not be the gate that it was telling us to go to, but it will do. Don't think we'll be able to line up for auto gate, unfortunately, but what I'm going to do is just pull up here. Okay, so we're down, so that I guess is the most important thing at the end of the day. So what I'm going to do now is cut the fuel, which will shut our engines down. And I turn off the batteries and the generators, the APU and the engine switches, and we're back to cold and dark and landed at Manchester. So I hope you enjoyed that, and see you again next time. Take care guys, bye.